Hello and welcome to another episode of Clone Wars Conversations. I'm your host, James Arnold Taylor. Well, actually today I'll be switching seats and handing those duties over to a guest host. You see, as an actor that was lucky enough to spend the last 16 years in that galaxy far, far away and getting to play, in my opinion, two of the coolest Jedi Knights ever, as well as some pretty great bad guys and more on 6 seasons of the Clone Wars, I thought it'd be fun to finally sit down and tell some of my stories and share my fondest memories of working with one of the best casts and crew of an animated series ever. While my day-to-day duties on the show were as Obi-Wan Kenobi, I was also blessed with a character that is strong in the Force and key to the upbringing of one Ahsoka Tano,
Jedi Master Plo Koon.
Now, through the years of hosting things like Star Wars Weekends and Star Wars Celebration, I've had the honor of interviewing just about everyone in the Star Wars universe, but rarely do I get to be interviewed in the same fashion. So today, join me as I sit and talk Clone Wars both on the macro and the micro series with writer, journalist, and host Amy Ratcliffe. This is part 1 of a 2-part series, because come on, I've finally got a chance to tell my stories and I've got a lot to say. Welcome to the conversation.
I'm so excited to talk about all things Clone Wars and Obi-Wan with you.
And I'm so glad that you could do this. And I mean, because rather than me doing an interview with me or, trying to
Having to go back and forth between chairs.
Yeah, that's just no. But I also thought, I rarely, being the host of all these various Star Wars things, I rarely ever get interviewed about my work on Clone Wars. And I don't mean that like, oh, aren't I wonderful? But I think some people might be interested.
Oh, absolutely. And it's good to get to get your perspective. Because like you said, when you're the interviewer, you're not like, you can stop talking, let me talk about me. That's not how it usually should go.
It's supposed to be.
So I want to go back, and I know this is a story you've probably told before, but for those who haven't heard it, let's go back to the beginning when you first started, the beginning of time.
Way back.
When you first started voicing Obi-Wan and how it came to be.
It's really interesting because it was not with the Clone Wars that everybody knows. It was with the micro series of the Clone Wars.
From Gindi.
Yeah, which I think people that do know it have a great passion for it.
Yes.
Because it was brilliant. So that was back in 2002, the micro series of the Clone Wars on Cartoon Network. They were 3-minute little episodes. And the funny thing is we joked when we do these, they were 3 minutes, so they were very short. But literally, you could have one line.
Oh, so yeah, like that's minimal dialogue in those.
Because Gindi is so stylized. Of course, he did Samurai Jack and all these wonderful shows, and he's such a wonderful director and visionary. And so he had this wonderful vision for what the Clone Wars would be. And so I went in. But when I did it, I auditioned at my agency, and my agents go, oh, so it's a Ewan McGregor voice match for the Star Wars stuff. And the first 2 films had come out. And so I thought it was going to be like for a trailer. Because a lot of times when I match people, it's to fix a line of dialogue
that makes
or,
sense.
Airplane versions of things, or if he's just not available for some ADR. I didn't know it was for a cartoon. They were keeping that totally quiet.
And that makes sense with the timing. I forgot that was before Revenge of the Sith. Sure, okay.
So they sent all these sound files of, you're right about one thing, Master. The negotiations were short. All the Phantom Menace lines, which I still have memorized. And some of the Attack of the Clone ones. Come to your senses. What would Padme do if she were in your position? All those. So I was getting all those down, and I thought, what can I do to stand out in this? I doubled for Ewan McGregor in the past, and I knew that we had similar voices. So if I'm talking normal, like when Ewan McGregor is speaking in an American accent, his voice is pretty close to my regular voice.
Yeah, that's very similar.
So I went, well, okay, so let me just put on an accent. Now, not his real accent, because of course he's Scottish.
Scottish, right? Yes,
yeah.
Yes. How could I forget that?
So I noticed he was doing a spot-on impression of Alec Guinness younger. So I would do an impression of Ewan McGregor doing Alec Guinness doing Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Well, that's a lot of layers.
So I just went in with it like, how would I sound with a British accent? And that's what I did instead. I just kind of did that.
I love hearing how you strip it down to figure out kind of that science of where I should, where you should land.
Yeah. And it was very different in the micro series because my voice changed throughout it. Like I changed what I was doing. So then we did the Revenge of the Sith video game, and that was being made at the same time as the movie. And that's when we really hit those layers of you were the chosen one and all that gravel and gruff stuff, those layers that Ewan McGregor built into the character, which were so brilliant. When I was, David Collins,
oh sure,
buddy David,
yes,
was directing me on these games. And the funny thing was, so he goes, I've got this laptop here that is like, strapped to his wrist on the plane and everything, because it held the footage from Revenge of the Sith.
Oh,
like
pressure.
Green screen, blue screen, no effects yet. Ewan McGregor and walking down the
a hot
things
commodity
and,
to have.
Hallways with Yoda, and it's just him, and then shots of him doing the "You Were the Chosen One," that whole thing on a green screen.
Wow.
And they showed it all to me to say, this is what you need to match. And so, thank God I did. And from that point on, they went, well, here's our guy. So then we went, years went by. 2005, I just got back from China from adopting my daughter from China. And I was back like 2 days. And I was in the studio meeting Dave Filoni and Henry Gilroy. And Andrea Romano
Oh, sure.
was doing the voice casting. And she originally directed the first several episodes. And Andrea is wonderful, and it was great. It was so fun. But that was years after the Clone Wars microseries had already come out and already had this kind of following. And I'd been doing him then all that time since as well for the games and toys and all that. So long history of being connected with this character.
No kidding. And I like when you get to go back to Clone Wars later that it kind of was so many years later. So the voice you did for the micro series, you could really, I guess, maybe I don't know that you found a new voice for Obi-Wan when you did Clone Wars, but you certainly had more dialogue in
this. You know what's interesting about it, Amy, is that, so the wonderful thing about it was Dave and George Lucas gave us this freedom as a cast. Dave made it a point to go, George said, Ewan McGregor will never play Obi-Wan Kenobi again. Alec Guinness will never play Obi-Wan Kenobi again. You're Obi-Wan. At the time, that's all we knew. We didn't know that more was going to happen.
Right.
But and maybe Ewan will play him again someday. Here's hoping, because he's so wonderful at it. But so he said, so make it your own. So I went from doing, Ewan McGregor, you look tired because of your mother, dreams pass in time, and all of these kind of things. And I turned it more into, I don't know, it's just more this. It's a very subtle,
sure, but it's
a little
yours.
bassier. It's not, he went more places. And what I found when we were doing the first episodes is every time I went into the places Ewan would go, Dave would redirect me.
Oh, so you would be like, bring it back to something a little less matchy-matchy.
Yeah.
Official word. I'm sure that's what Dave Filoni said.
He wanted, he wanted a more controlled Obi-Wan. I think even though this is not between episodes 3 and 4, we were playing more of that Obi-Wan.
Gotcha.
That was always kind of my vision. But I also purposely never really watched Revenge of the Sith much while we were doing the show.
Yeah, it can imagine be so easy for that to creep in.
And I didn't want my Obi-Wan to be influenced by what that Obi-Wan knows.
Oh, that's a good point. Even though you already know it,
yeah,
but it's not fresh in your head.
Right. I don't want to believe it. No.
Yeah, that's a different, he gets to know Anakin a lot different way.
Yeah.
So one of the things I particularly enjoy about the Clone Wars, among many things, but is seeing the Obi-Wan and Anakin relationship, because you get to see so much more of their friendship.
Yeah. It was, when Matt Lanter came in, and we've actually done a conversation and we talked about this, but so Matt was not originally Anakin in this version of the Clone Wars. They had Matt Lucas, another Matt, who played him in the micro series.
Oh, in Gindy's, that's right.
He had actually voiced, I think, maybe 4 or 5 episodes. And they had already done some animation and such on it. So Matt Lanter came in and had to ADR.
Oh, what was already recorded?
So those first few, which actually ended up being like the movie. Because, they took, the Clone Wars film was not intended to be a Clone Wars film. It was intended to be the first 4 episodes of the Clone Wars.
Which makes sense when you watch the movie, because it's a little, sometimes you're like, this still feels a little disjointed.
Yeah, and we went back and did things to help kind of join those together. But And the story is that George said, well, this looks so good, let's make it a movie. You're not going to argue with George Lucas.
No, of course not.
And the other thing is that, we're going back 10 years or more now. Well, it was 2005 when we started all of this.
Wow.
So 12 years. And George did the first 2 years, we didn't have a network. We didn't know where it was going to end up.
Oh, I didn't know that.
We were just making a show.
This is going to be aired somewhere.
This was the beauty of having somebody that is self-contained, his own production.
Yeah, he could do that.
His own budget. He just went, I want to make this.
This is a story I would like to see.
And we'll see where it goes. This is nothing against Cartoon Network at all, because I want them to hire me again. No, but
yes.
We wanted it. We were all hoping for Fox on Sunday nights, which of course the irony there is I do the voice.
You do. I was going to say you do the
Sunday, animation domination.
But we thought that would have been a great place for it.
Well, it's going to get a lot of eyeballs that way because it's a main network.
And it was very different from anything else they had. They had comedies, and then we thought, it would have been really cool to throw this drama. And, in 20th Century Fox, I don't know, it's just that kind of old feeling of that.
Synergy.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought it would have been great if that had been the case. But Cartoon Network was so wonderful in putting these out and really getting behind it and turning it into this great thing. But off on a tangent there. But Matt Lancer comes in midway through and does this. And the first session I had with Matt, I was actually voicing Plo Koon. And it was Ashley and Matt and myself, and we were all new friends, And I went, wow, I get it. This guy is embodying this character without doing a voice match of Hayden, which Matt Lucas was a spot-on voice match.
Yeah, he was really close.
Yeah, he was very good. But Matt Lancer.
And so that's something I never thought of when I watched the series because, like you said, I'm like, no, you're Anakin.
Yeah, and again, credited to George Lucas and Dave Filoni and the people there that went, no, we just want to make these characters. So when you watch Obi-Wan, you hear Obi-Wan. You don't hear Ewan McGregor, Alec Guinness, James Arnold Taylor. You hear Obi-Wan Kenobi. So.
Well, and back in the beginning, too, when you were recording with everyone, Ashley and Matt, I think they were relatively new to voice acting.
Yeah.
And you kind of had a little more of a veteran's experience. What was that like?
It was always fun. Same with, Matt Wood came in and recorded with us.
Oh, right.
Most of the time, Matt would just go because, he's the sound designer for the show, so he would just record in his office. But there were a lot of times where he came in and recorded with us.
He saw the battle droids, right? Among
all
other
battle
things.
droids and General Grievous.
Sure.
And various other things here and there wherever needed, he and David Acord. So Matt would be in there, and you could feel with all of them this kind of like, well,
what are we?
We're not worthy. And we're like, guys, you're fine. Catherine Tabor, a very talented voice actress, took to it amazingly well, but she had been an on-camera actress really primarily as well. And they all just came in and just found their characters. But once that intimidation was done, because you're in a room with Phil Lamar, Corey Burton, Tom Kane.
Y'all are some
D.
heavy
Bradley
hitters.
Baker,
sure.
Little old me. We were just used to working, and it quickly became such a unique situation where I've been in so many shows where there are celebrities or there's on-camera actors, and it's uncomfortable. And I don't mean that as a negative towards them. It's just they're uncomfortable too.
It creates a different environment.
I was just at a session the other day with Chad Lowe, the actor Chad Lowe,
yes.
Rob Lowe's brother and such. Chad is a wonderful guy, and he's a wonderful director and an on-camera actor, and he was doing this voiceover part. And he was so self-conscious, and he's like, it's so hard. And I go, you're doing great, man. But I think what we have to remember is that these people feel like, okay, I want to do well too. It's new day and new school.
Well, yeah, it's your first day.
Yeah.
It always comes with a bit of nervousness.
But as voice actors, we can kind of like, oh, the on-camera actor has come in. But it's like, they're kind of like, well, don't hate me.
I'm sorry, I'm just learning.
So we all had a lot of compassion for them in that, and it just made for a fun time.
Yeah, then fast forward to, when the Clone Wars, as you recorded over the years.
Yeah.
How did the dynamic between all of you, because I love that you all recorded
changed.
together.
All the time, yeah. It was a regular occurrence. So we would go to LA Studios down in Los Angeles, across from Universal Studios. And you'd get into that lobby that day and you'd see who was playing because you'd never get the script until you walked in. It was very rare that you got a script beforehand.
Blows my mind, always.
Yeah, and you're talking about 25, 26 pages of dialogue, and you don't know how much or how little or you're in it. And you would get those scripts and you just go for it, but it was always a big party in the lobby beforehand. I've released videos on my channel of some of the home movies I took of all of us in the lobby and just having a good time. Everybody relaxed. They found their characters, they relaxed. The biggest thing that made that possible was fans. Yeah. Fans initially embracing these characters, loving what everybody was doing, and social media.
I'll say, yeah, which I feel like kind of developed along with Clone Wars.
The dawn of social media. And, you know, Tracy Canobio, a wonderful publicist at Lucasfilm, always kind of says whenever we talk, it's like, yeah, you guys were like the first cast to really embrace social media, embrace fans, and really
interact.
And make it what it is now. I mean, like, that's a credit now to the Rebels cast and everybody else. They all have it a lot easier because of what the Clone Wars cast did. That's not a pat on our backs. It's just,
well, the timing worked out with the growth of the show, and you kind of made a template.
Yeah.
How to
do it. Yeah, and we were learning too. And Star Wars weekends and Star Wars Celebration. You know, I always joke, it was like the first Star Wars Celebration I went to was 3. And it was in LA.
Oh, was it? Oh, right.
Yeah, and at the convention center. And I went in and I had already done the micro series and such, but nobody knew who I was. Nobody cared. And cut to the next one. And everybody's like, oh, Clone Wars. And cut to the next one, and I'm, you know, hosting one of them. And then the next day, hosting again. It was like, it was funny to see this little voice actor that could actually get a part in such a gigantic universe.
Well, and yeah, social media also meant voice actors who might not be immediately, you know, recognizable on the street as much.
Right.
And I feel like Star Wars community especially has a microscope on that.
Yeah, it was pretty special. It was one of the most special moments and times of my life and my career, and one of the best shows I could work on because of the cast and because of the freedom that George gave us all. You know, it's like people go, well, how do you say this character's name? George was always like, well, however you say it is how you say it.
Yeah, that's nice. There was
a freedom in that.
Here's the guide.
Yeah.
Please put the emphasis on the syllable.
So Billy D says Han,
right?
And we say Han, you know.
So Donna says Leah, I think, at one point, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
That's what you want to say.
That's how it is, because that's real.
And I'm jumping all over the place, but I recently got to watch a voice recording session for the first time for an upcoming animated series.
Oh, cool.
And it was neat to hear, like, I liked hearing the direction they were giving the actors. So, and it was like, you know, be more up or take this slower. You're really excited. What kind of sticks out in your mind, like, not maybe as a weird one, but kind of a memorable, trying to get it just right?
There's a line that I say that still really bothers me. I was never comfortable saying it's, you lie. And it's a very simple line. Mm-hmm. But David always given us this freedom to kind of take these things and change them up. But he had in his mind very specifically, he wanted it that way still. And so I had said, I'm just not feeling it. And he wanted me to still just say it that way. And that one still, when I watch it, I go, I just didn't.
It just, something about it didn't.
I didn't sell, you know. It didn't feel like something Obi-Wan would say in that way. At that point, I was just like, I don't know. You're a liar. I don't know, or that's a lie. You know, I wanted to say something else, but instead it was, you lie. And it just sounded funny, you know, like, nuh-uh.
No, I don't.
So that one sticks out as one that I wish I could have fixed. But there was a line from Matt Lanter. We didn't cover this on his show. When Reiko Hardeen, the Hardeen episodes.
Yes.
And spoiler alert, when Anakin thinks that Obi-Wan is been killed. Sure. Yeah, because Reiko Hardeen sniper hits him. He says, Obi-Wan? Obi-Wan! And we're in the studio there, and Corey Burton's on one side of Matt, and I'm on the other side of Matt. And he says that line, and he's choked up. I mean, because Matt's the real deal. You know, so he just delivers this line. I go, it's one word. It's Obi-Wan. And he had Corey and I like teared up because we felt the pain.
Wow.
He was just so in tune with the character.
Yeah, and so like that's powerful.
Yeah. So there was wonderful moments like that. Just so many great times with all these fantastic actors.
What memories. I mean, what a family you kind of all became.
Absolutely.
And that's apparent when I've seen you talk, in other episodes of Clone Wars Conversations.
Yeah.
You guys really have quite the history together. You spent hours recording.
Hours and years of our time. I mean, Ashley will be coming in for one soon. And the amount of time that Ashley and I have spent together, I mean, she's like a little sister to me. I love her with all my heart. And Ahsoka Tano is my favorite character in the Clone Wars because she reminds me of all of us. She reminds me of my daughter. She reminds me of, she's that kid that loved Star Wars is what I see in Ahsoka.
Yes.
And she grows up with it. And then she gets hurt by it and she gets changed by it. And then she matures and gets past it and all of those things. So she lives all of those various emotions that we all live.
She's going on a real journey.
Yeah.
And also so is Ashley, along with her.
Along with it. And she's just done so great with it all. I'm so, I don't mean this to sound like I'm so proud of her, but I'm so proud of what she's accomplished with all of it. And I really credit, I don't care what everybody says, this whole resurgence or new surgence of girls in Star Wars. Strong female characters. It started, I don't care what you say, it started with Ashley Eckstein. It started with her universe. It started with her putting those numbers out that half of the Star Wars fans are girls.
Please look, yes.
That's important stuff, and that's where we're at now, and I feel that she was really the one.
She was a catalyst.
Yeah.
Yes, I can find T-shirts in lady sizes. So many now.
Skirts.
Oh, speaking of her universe. But yeah, she changed a lot in fandom, and I don't know, I think Clone Wars also and her visibility in that.
Absolutely.
Definitely
and
contributed.
People not seeing the power of Clone Wars initially. Disney not even seeing the power of Clone Wars initially. And George believing in it so much so. I'll never forget the first year I hosted Star Wars Weekends, being backstage with Bob Iger, George Lucas, Dave Filoni, Ashley Eckstein, Daniel Logan, Anthony Daniels, and myself. And we're waiting to go on stage. And for about 45 minutes, I'm sitting there this close to George and Bob Iger having a conversation about Clone Wars. And George is telling him all about Clone Wars.
Wow, what a pinch me moment.
Who knew 2 years later, there was a reason he was having that conversation with him. He was selling him.
He's like, let me tell you about all the things we're doing.
But he was like a little kid excited about his new toy. And it was charming and wonderful and brilliant to see.
Oh, I feel like Clone Wars was in a lot of ways his I don't want to say his baby. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but definitely he
was in it. His family was in it. His daughter wrote episodes. And
the Night Sisters arc, man, who could forget, among other things.
Yeah, very important stuff.
You talked about Star Wars weekends, and you did a couple years of those.
I did 7 years of Star Wars weekends. I hosted 5 of them.
Wait, that many?
Yeah.
That makes me feel like time has flown in a way I have completely lost track of.
I hosted 5 years of Star Wars weekends. I hosted 2 years of Celebration. And I was there for 2 years before I hosted. That's a great story in that I went to the first Star Wars weekends as a host or as a guest for one weekend. And they had no money to pay any of us because Clone Wars.
At that time, yeah, sure. Yeah,
they had the stars from the movies, and those were more important. But this was a nice little side thing. They didn't realize that the fans were in love with it. I remember there was one piece of Clone Wars merchandise. It was little pins.
I bet they learned.
Oh, they learned very quickly. And then the next year they had more. And by that next year, they started watching, and they said to me, "Would you ever want to host any of these things?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And Ashley was doing a great job hosting the Behind the Force show, and of course that wasn't the thing. So they had me as the host for the event, and then Ashley hosted the Clone Wars part still, and we kept that. That was still always the way it went. And then I always kind of looked at it as we're both kind of tag teaming on things, but so I wrote and produced all my material, all the talk show stuff for all the shows and all the comedy bits in between and all the stuff. And by the last 2 years, we had this gigantic fireworks show that at the end of the night in front of 15,000 people, I would get up there and do this whole show where the bad guys are trying to get me and the good guys are there to save me. And then we ended it with this fantastic fireworks display and some amazing times. And that particular show, if you watch it online, it was called Summon the Force. It's about 12, 15 minutes long. And it is like they hit play. And it's all dependent on me knowing my lines and not messing up. Because if I fumble on a line, everything is still moving and going.
Oh, that's right, because there are a lot of characters coming in and
it's
out
all programmed,
and all the,
yeah.
Right.
And so it was imperative for me to memorize. And as a voice actor, I'm used to always having a
Yeah,
script.
like I have the script right in front of me.
But my
somebody
stage
just
show,
told us?
and that also was the first place I did my stage show, my one-man stage show. Talking to Myself, which we called Obi-Wan and Beyond. And I had to cut it down to a half-an-hour version. But yeah, and Lucasfilm was so kind to give me holograms of Obi-Wan in the clear and to make him, because he's kind of like the little voice that comes in and out of the show and stuff. But all thanks to Clone Wars, all thanks to all of that. One of the funnest parts was always showing a montage in the middle, and it gave me a chance to go off stage and get into a straitjacket. Was for a bit in the show. But I would show a montage of all the characters I got to voice on Clone Wars. And that was the other beautiful thing, was getting to do all those characters. And that's part one of my time talking Clone Wars with blogger and all-around Star Wars geek, Amy Ratcliffe. Join us for the second half soon. Also, please consider clicking the subscribe button here at the JAT Channel and get more entertainment like this on a regular basis. It's all free and hopefully informative and fun for you. Special thanks to Amy for sitting in as host on these 2 episodes, and be sure to follow her on social media. And thanks to the official water of the JAT Channel, Mountain Valley Water. Hope to see you back here for another Clone Wars conversation.